Hi everyone, today is the update for the 8th of July for the whole day. Mike had another very busy day today. I got there this morning and just in time essentially to have a quick visit to find out that they were doing a bronchoscopy this morning. So and then Dan and I went for a little break while Mike was having his bronchoscopy. And then we were meeting with the doctor. The doctor came in and said that he would meet with us between 1 and 2. It ended up being closer to 3. Around 1:30, though, I find out. Let me back up a sec. I get to the room. I notice that Mike's chest isn't moving, so I'm like, I thought that's really odd. So I figured, oh, they must have given him rocuronium, which they did. So that's then what set me off to say, oh, what's going on that they gave him rock? And it was a bronchoscopy and whatever. Danny and I went for a lunch or a little snack. Came back then around 1:30. I find out that during the night at around 3 a.m., Mike lost his respiratory drive. Now, yesterday, when Dan and I were there, it was the one nurse wasn't being very forthright with suctioning Mike when he was coughing. He was doing a lot of coughing, a lot of chugging, breathing, gasping kind of thing. And I was freaking out about it. And they're just like, oh, it's no big deal. And I kept bugging him anyway. I think I mentioned they turned him about 10 cc's of fluid came out of his mouth. And I was just really frustrated, kind of horrified. And then to find out that he lost his respiratory drive because his CO2 levels went so high because he was left chugging. And so when the day nurse went home, or no, she went on break, sorry, another nurse came in and she gave him a 2 cc bolus of the Dilaudid, and that settled him and settled his breathing. But otherwise, the other person was just leaving him chugging, not suctioning him and whatever. Anyway, so that was really interesting to find out at 1:30 in the afternoon when I told them to call me if he was wakeful or anything happens. But they didn't bother to tell me about that. Anyway, so they did the bronch. We met with the doctor. And, the doctor said, well, we just wanted to know where we were at or where we thought things were. And so I kind of said, well, we know things aren't the greatest and whatever. And so we had that talk. And then Dan, I think, got a little frustrated by, because every doctor starts out with that kind of thing. And he just like, look, we know. So we just want to know like what's new. And the doctor said, well, we're still continuing treatment, and I don't think it's time to have that conversation yet, and whatever. And then we started in with, well, we would like to request a transplant, double lung transplant, because the doctor was willing to go over the CT with us, etc., and we didn't get there because I gave him the gist of what I knew, and like from what he had told Dan the previous day. Anyway, so then I didn't think to hear like, well, what to ask the doctor. So what are your plans going forward? Like, what do you think? Because we had come with our articles and let them know what we knew about what we had researched about the transplantation, about people that are way sicker than Mike that got double lung transplants and are doing well with 100% success rate thus far. Then the doctor started to talk about, oh, well, we have to consider what their deconditioning is like. And I countered that with saying, well, these research articles talk about these people being severely deconditioned neuromuscularly, being obese, having higher BMI, like that just wasn't reason to not offer them that. And then when he talked about, following, being able to rehabilitate, and of course, what it seemed like he was getting at is because Mike's big, that, I don't really know what the association, so I jumped in right away and I just said, look, he's a driven man. Like, obviously, he's still here. He's fighting. You can see he's a fighter. He's been fighting this long. I told him about when he'd amputated part of his finger, just what he went through and how he worked very hard with this hand exercises and the scar tissue and all that. And he went through all the pain and the whatever to get that back so he could play. And I said, he used to be an athlete, and the fact that he's a millwright, and then when he's at work and he was working at the mine, he'd have to go up so many flights of stairs so many different times a day. So it's not that he's out of shape. He's just large. Like he's a fat guy. And I said, I'm only calling him a fat guy because he calls himself a fat guy. Otherwise, I wouldn't say that. I just thought I'd put it in terms that, just be very blunt about it. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to rehabilitate. I said, plus he has a nurse at home. And he has extremely strong family, and that would help him along, and that he is very driven, and there's lots of things that will give him that drive. And I think that was important because I don't think they cared to really know much about Mike that way. So the doctor agreed to consult with the transplant team. That did not happen this afternoon. We didn't see them, so we're hoping tomorrow morning we'll have that opportunity. And I did let it be known that, if they decide they don't want to do it here in Edmonton or in Alberta, then I will need to request consultation from somewhere else and look for transport to another place that may take him on. Because everything they wanted to come at us with, like impossibility, the research articles I had talked about that. And so it's like thank you to all of you who had sent articles. You know who you are, because that was really helpful to be armed with those things so that we could say, yes, but in this article it says this. And really, honestly, when I was reading about some of these patients, they were like much sicker than Mike. And, some of them were able to be weaned off sedation, and Mike really isn't able to be weaned off sedation. He becomes hemodynamically unstable, and therefore, consent. They talk about they prefer to have consent of the person to let them know like exactly what is going to be entailed in this process. And then they talked about, having the alternate decision maker for some people. And I just really feel, and, I've talked with the boys about all of this, and they and Mike's family, and they agree that, yeah, this is probably he would have the drive, and this is what we need to do next. I don't want to sit for a long time about this because time is of the essence. I don't want to wait for a catastrophic event, because that's kind of, from what I was getting from the doctor, even though we didn't have that conversation, for me to say, okay, so what do you see happening from here? I know he was going to talk to this medical officer of health for some company in Vancouver who was about a medication. He's very open and willing, which was lovely to finally be working with physicians like this. We should have been working with physicians like this for a while now, but unfortunately that wasn't necessarily the case. So yeah, hoping for a positive day tomorrow. I think that we, presented our case. Things have changed significantly. I didn't get to give the articles to them, but I I'm sure they read articles, but I'm still bringing them with me tomorrow to say, okay, well, this says this and this says this, and you know, because I think Mike would at this point be very high priority on the list. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens there. And that's all for now. I don't really have anything else to add other than, the frustration with that kind of thing. Mike didn't tolerate going back on the spontaneous breathing with pressure support that he's been on for the last 3 days, since yesterday the nurse or whatever just left him chugging and just really wasn't very. Oh, and the doctor told us, because I said, please let like what happened with the bronch. And he said, well, they found that the trach tube was so coated and crusted that there wasn't a whole lot of airspace in there that he could breathe through. So no wonder he's chugging. Like, I mean, no wonder he's gasping. Like, they're, think about breathing through a tiny little hole. Like, so they changed that out. They cleared out his lungs, got a whole bunch of crap out of there. He's still bubbling stuff up. Again, every time I say that, they don't listen to me. I'm getting very frustrated with that. Oh, it's just a cuff leak. Oh, it's just this. Oh, one nurse even said, oh, it could be draining from his eustachian tubes. Like, come on. Come on. I just, listen to me. Please just listen to me and just listen. And I think I'm going to have to start being a little more forceful instead of saying, hey, I kind of think, and I've seen bubbles in there, and whatever. And like, I know that this is not my area of expertise, but I think I've been here long enough now, and what I've seen and I know about Mike, that just listen to me, please. Anyway, yeah. So I'll leave it there. That's it. I love you all, and sorry that this is coming late. I was already tucked into bed, and then I realized, oh crap, I've just been so tired that I didn't think about it. Anyway, I will talk to you all tomorrow, and I hope I really have some good news that he's making it onto a transplant list somewhere, whether it's here or Vancouver, or I don't know. Does Alberta want to be the hero for their first transplant? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Thank you all for the strength that you've been bringing to us, and the kindness and support. And I really, really appreciate it. Have a good night.